Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing inspiring stories from business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate investors on the pursuit of wealth and financial freedom. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by the Geofocus Group. Hey everybody, welcome to Inspire to Invest. I've got Ellen Silverman joining me from New York City today. She works for a national brokerage called Compass, and they're headquartered in Manhattan. Her promise to her clients is how to find sanctuary in the city that never sleeps. And whether you're seeking that perfect space or selling a prized property, she's 100% dedicated to meeting your needs and also protecting your best interests in the unique and vibrant New York City market. She has experience city living as a renter, buyer, seller, co-op, and condominium owner, and she has a keen eye for interior design, and she loves keeping on top of new condo development. So thanks for taking time out of what I assume is a very busy schedule to be with us today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So obviously this podcast is focused on real estate, but we also like to shed a light on business and entrepreneurship. So any lessons that you can infuse for our audience can kind of focus on any of those topics. But with real estate in mind, how did you get involved in the industry and what are some of the things that you're seeing in the New York market right now?
Oh God, quite a story. My background really is banking and finance,
Okay.
but I've been an apartment owner for, I guess, since around 1995, so close to 30 years.
Yeah.
And I bought and sold my own apartment three times. So I was always in the real estate game in New York City.
Yeah.
And I always had a good perspective on neighborhoods and what neighborhoods were going to gentrify and appreciate in value, in real
Yeah.
estate value.
Yeah.
I've been very good at that. And I think it's because I was born and raised here. And I just have a very good understanding of New York and how it works, and it's in
Yeah.
my blood. And so and I always loved apartments and decorating and furniture and color, and no matter what size apartment, I always found a way to make it a home.
Yeah.
So real estate has always sort of been in my blood, and I have a financial background from banking. So um I decided after about 30 years in Wall Street, it was time to go. It was just time to go. And I thought of real estate being my next career because of my own experience in it, and as well as good financial skills, which are really needed in
Yeah.
real estate.
Yeah. No, for sure. What would you say is your favorite neighborhood in New York City?
Oh my God, I have so many. I love the Upper West Side. I love Carnegie Hill, which is sort of the Upper East Side. It's a
Yeah.
little more isolated and quaint. I mean, I love downtown. I love the meatpacking district. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. I love Chelsea.
Yeah.
The new developments and architecture downtown is just fantastic.
Yeah, I've only been once. I went for my birthday probably 12 years ago or something like that. So I got the chance to experience it in a couple days. And I think by the end we walked so much I was limping to our plane.
It's a walking
It's definitely
city. Yeah.
a very unique city. Now, it's also known to be very, very expensive. So for someone that is considering it, whether they're looking to buy a home or they're looking to invest, what would you say are some tips and hints that you could offer just so that they aren't getting it over their head or maybe are there any unique investments that people may not be as aware of that they should be?
Yeah, I think when people think of New York City, they watch Sex and the City or they watch Succession, and they see these
Yeah.
gorgeous apartments in these major central neighborhoods of Manhattan. But there's lots of new up and coming areas in Queens, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, where you can buy an apartment for less than $500,000 or $600,000. You can buy a condominium, and they do have monthly common charges and taxes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, interest rates are going to stay at that 6%. Um, so that's just a given. I can't do anything about that. But what I can do is guide clients to neighborhoods where I feel their gentrification will take place. It always does. It
Yeah.
always does. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I've lived here
Yeah.
my whole life. So if you can't afford Manhattan or you don't want to live in a small box for $500,000, and I don't blame anyone
Yeah.
for not wanting to do that. Consider the other areas that are near a subway,
Yeah.
that are 3 and 4 and 5 subway stops into the city.
Yeah.
So that's what I would suggest. And always go condominium.
Yeah.
I don't like co-ops.
Yeah,
Too
yeah, I
many
can
rules and
understand. I know
regulations.
that they've got a different level of complexity. Now, for
Yeah.
someone that's looking to invest in New York, what would you say are some of the more popular rental properties? Like obviously condos, I'm sure, but do you guys focus on things like midterm rentals or Airbnbs permitted? Like what
Hmm.
would you say is really attracting the majority of investors?
Yeah, we are not like Miami. There are very, very few buildings in New York City that allow for month-to-month rentals, and we don't
Okay.
allow Airbnb. I mean,
Okay.
they happen, but it's under the radar, and a, it's really not a good thing to do, especially in a
Okay.
condo building where there are condo owners that have invested and they don't want heavy traffic back and forth in their building.
Yeah.
But there are a few buildings that allow the month-to-month rentals. I think, you know, the shortest term for a renter now is 12 months. It has to be at least 12 months in a
Yeah.
condo.
Yeah.
Um, there are, rents are high right now
Yeah.
in these buildings.
What would the average like a one bedroom condo rent for?
It depends on the neighborhood, but I would say a one bedroom would probably be $4,000 to $6,000 a month
Yeah.
in a decent neighborhood with a doorman and an elevator.
Yeah. Now I'm just based outside of Toronto and here in Canada, things can really vary when it comes to landlord-tenant rules. What is it like in New York City? Do you guys have more favorable laws for the landlords or for the tenants?
Wait, I'm sorry. You froze a little bit. What was the
Oh, sorry. I
question?
was going to say, so here in Canada, I'm just outside of Toronto, and from province to province, the landlord-tenant laws really vary significantly. So I'm curious to know what they're like in New York City. Are they more favorable to the landlord or to the tenant?
Oh, they're more favorable to the landlord. Most landlords want to see income of 35 to 40 times the rent in income.
Yeah.
And if you don't show that, but you have a guarantor, the guarantor has to show 80 times the rent in income.
Okay.
And you have to show documentation that that shows that income level.
And then if there is an instance of non-payment of rent, like how easy is it to get a tenant evicted?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's not easy to evict a tenant, but if they're not paying their rent after, I would say, 3 months, um, the city marshal comes or someone comes and you are evicted.
It's not too bad. I mean, in Toronto, it can honestly be like over a year or
Oh,
way
really?
longer. And if there's one little mistake on your application to the LTV, then you can literally get booted to the back of the line. So I know people that have taken sometimes 2 or 3 years to get a tenant out here. So it's awful. Like if you're a real estate investor, especially for a condo, like that would be your sole source of income to cover those expenses, right? So it's much more challenging here in Ontario, but there are other places like Alberta and New Brunswick that are more favorable to the landlord where you can get people out within 30 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's a question I need to do a little more research on. I've never been asked that. That's crazy. Yeah, because I think the vetting process is so strict. And by the time a renter is approved by a landlord, they've
Yeah.
gone through so much vetting with financial documents and credit checks and criminal
Right.
checks and not criminal, background checks.
Yeah. Well, here they call them like professional tenants. So oftentimes they can get through a lot of that screening and then know that if they stop paying the rent, they've got like a lot of time to burn through before they're going to get kicked out. So
Oh,
again,
wow.
you have to be very careful. And I'm not going to say that people don't have apartment buildings and rentals and stuff like that. It's just you have to understand from a real estate investing standpoint what your appetite is to deal with those situations if they do occur. So sometimes people will invest outside of their backyard because they just don't want to deal with stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So in terms of your own experience real estate investing, can you talk a little bit about what you've done? Like, do you have a portfolio of properties right now? And what do those look like?
I was listening to your podcast and I could see people are real estate investors. I don't have a portfolio of properties. Although I have thought about investing in Miami, and I'm very Miami focused. I
I don't
love
blame you.
I love Miami. The development is off the charts. I mean, everyone keeps
Yeah.
telling me it's going to sink, but the top in developers and investors are there still.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know.
the question is it going to sink or is it going to flood, right? Like I've seen a lot of things to do with like, there's one called, I think, a sunny day flood, and just it wasn't raining, but all of a sudden all the water just started coming up. So I know Miami's investing a lot of money in precautions to try to combat
Yeah.
climate change, but nobody can see into the future. So I guess we'll see where things head.
Look at California. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what will be.
Yeah.
But I do think Miami is still a good place to invest. I mean, I have bought and sold three times and here in Manhattan, and I've always bought in neighborhoods that were not the greatest, but were going to gentrify. I had a really good sixth sense about it.
Yeah.
I bought my first apartment in 1995 for about $40,000.
Oh, wow.
And but it was way uptown in Manhattan. And everybody thought I was out of my mind crazy. Why are you living so far away? I said, it's still Manhattan. It's at the time, area code 212. I have a 212. That was, a prestigious thing to have, area code 212. And I thought, here the apartment was huge, 1,000 square feet. It was beautiful. And I couldn't have been happier. I've been renting a very tiny studio downtown in the village, and I had enough of living in a little apartment.
Yeah.
So I bought that, and eventually I sold it about 10 years later for about 350,000.
Yeah.
The market, again, the neighborhood gentrified. Then I went further down on the Upper West Side. I bought another co-op. I was there about 9 years, pre-war building with a lot of problems. So I sold it, and now I'm in a condominium in Harlem.
Yeah.
And this building was very, very inexpensive. It was sort of like it was right before the market was increasing in 2014. I bought this in 2012. The developer was desperate. I bought this apartment for about 425,
Yeah.
and I could more than double my money today on this
Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah. And that's what I
So
think when you look at things like growing your wealth, like obviously part of it's you need a home. But for someone that is just starting out, there's a lot of different strategies, but I think that's one of the tried and true just to make sure that you are, planning for your future. And that's why you don't want to waste your money on rent. We're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our
yeah.
sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Whether you are launching your first development or shifting your portfolio into the missing middle, land development and construction come with challenges. The GeoFocus Group helps you navigate those challenges with clarity, structure, and confidence. With decades of experience managing complex builds, turning around stalled projects, and recovering timelines and budgets, our team is trusted by an extensive roster of developers and investors. Today, we bring that same level of precision to the growing purpose-built rental market, helping both new and experienced developers succeed in delivering needed housing. We support your project from the earliest stages of acquisition and due diligence through zoning, site plan approvals, and permit submissions. Checks. With purpose-built rentals becoming a key part of long-term housing strategy in communities of all sizes, the need for experienced project leadership is greater than ever.
I value transparency, integrity, and trust. If you choose to work with me, you can be assured that business will be conducted honestly and openly. Time is of the essence in this industry, so you can expect nothing short of quick, clear communication from me. I'll keep you informed every step of the way so you feel comfortable throughout this entire process. Our homes are where we eat, sleep, relax, and play. My clients' best interests are at the heart of everything I do. And with this said, my service to you doesn't end when the transaction does. As your realtor, I'll not only help you buy and sell your property, I'll also educate and support you along the way. I want to help you fulfill your goal of home ownership and become your trusted real estate resource for life. I can't wait to share my passion for real estate with you. More importantly, find you the perfect house to turn into your home. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in Durham Region or Toronto? Let's chat. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspired to Invest. I've got Ellen Silverman joining me from New York City, and we're talking about her experience living in the Big Apple and what things have looked like in terms of where she started buying her first unit for $40,000, and now after buying and selling a few times, she could probably, make it easily 10 times that, if not 20 times.
Yeah.
Now, you also talked about having this experience working on Wall Street. So I just wanted to dig in that a little bit, because obviously seems like quite the fast-paced, crazy environment. Do you have any crazy stories that you can share from when you were working in that type of environment?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, I did work on a few trading desks. And even I left Wall Street in 2016, and even in 2016, which is only 10 years ago, I was still amongst a sea of desks, 200 men, maybe there were 3 women still. So it is definitely a boys' club.
Yeah. And
Um,
why do you think that is?
why is that? Well, it's Wall Street, it's finance,
Yeah, but
it's a
like
man's.
women can understand numbers and make phone calls. Like, what do you think it is that would attract?
Oh, absolutely. And women are excellent traders and are detail oriented and are sharp as hell and are much more pleasant to deal with than men that are yelling and screaming and breaking phones and china dishes. Believe
Yeah.
me, I'd much rather deal with a woman. I think, well, that was about, it was 10 years ago. I do think things are changing in the world of finance. I do think women are making inroads, and there are more women in high positions in
Yeah.
finance. Absolutely. But back then, not as much. Um, I um I work with some really incredibly brilliant people, and I'm very grateful for those opportunities. And I learned a lot, and I have a good math mind. I always had a good I was always good in math, so that helped. Um, but it is very fast paced, and you really have to learn how to assimilate a lot of information in the morning to get out to investors, and to other stockbrokers and to
Yeah.
other investment bankers quickly and
Yeah.
clearly. And I think if you're good at your job, it really doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. People want the right information at the right time.
Yeah.
The same way in real estate. Um, Look at Barbara Corcoran. She's in her 70s. People really listen to her. And I think just do your homework. Just do your homework. Be
Yeah.
sure of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Speak with confidence. Speak with a sense of calm. Don't be emotional, because it's like finance and the stock market, real estate is very emotional.
Yeah.
It is, and it's personal.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, that's one thing
so
that I was very surprised by. I came from a B2B background running an events company. And, you are doing corporate events and different things. Doesn't mean things can't come up, but obviously it's a very different relationship that you have with those kinds of clients compared to working on the B2C, like residential real estate side, right? So very emotionally charged. People are dealing with their own money, their life savings and stuff like that. It's not like corporate budgets. And it's even hard to put into words sometimes just how different that dynamic has been.
yeah.
So I think it's been an interesting transition. But what would you say are some of the skills that you've taken from working in finance that have really, served you well when you transition into real estate?
I think I do a lot of Excel spreadsheets for buyers, when they've looked at 20 properties, and they just forget, what are things cost? What are the monthlies? What is my
Yeah.
mortgage payment? What is this really going to cost me? So I do a lot of spreadsheets. I put everything in one Excel chart so they can see it.
Yeah.
I think really talking numbers is is my strength. But also understanding, is this a good investment? Is this a good building? Are they solid financially? Is it go- is it does it have good quality materials? Was
Yeah.
it built well?
Yeah.
I can tell sort of looking at finishes and the walls and the doorknobs if it was shoddy or not.
Yeah.
I can also advise on neighborhoods and blocks and corners and crevices. Is it near a restaurant? Are you going to have rodents? Is it going to be a clean street? Is it going to be easy access to a subway? So I think
Yeah.
knowing finance, but also really understanding New York City are my strong points.
Yeah, I think one thing that I found, like when I bought my first home, we went in the middle of the day and the street seemed so quiet and really nice, like mature trees. And, every time we saw it, we were kind of in that time frame, like mid-afternoon. And then when we moved in, it's very different on a Saturday night. And I was like, that's actually one thing that I've said now, working as a realtor to people, like go at different times of the day on different days of
Yes.
the week just to really get a true sense of what's kind of happening. And in that particular instance, there was one home where, I think that the person living there had some shady business dealings, and it was just like a very constant, steady flow of traffic, oftentimes late, block parties and stuff like that. And as soon as they moved out a year later, the whole street cleaned up. But there's no way I could have known based on like the time frames that I was going. And, it still ended up being fine in the long run, but you definitely get a different perspective by, seeing things at different windows of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Go on a weekend, go on a Saturday night, walk around.
Yeah.
Also just sit in the lobby and see the kind of people walking
Yeah.
in and out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's smart. Now, in
Yeah.
terms of things like wealth building strategies, what would you say are some of the things that you've learned from your own experiences or just from dealing with different clients that have worked really well, just whether it's connected to business or real estate?
Mm. Oh God. It's been such a crazy time. I think, how do you build, I'm always asked, what is this going to be worth in 5 years? Is this going to appreciate?
What's your
I,
crystal
s-
ball?
I say stay away from the co-ops. Most of those are in pre-war buildings
Yeah.
with pre-war problems.
Yeah.
Go into condominiums that are newer. I love new development because you're getting the latest infrastructure,
Yeah.
design, um, you know, AC and heating systems.
Yeah.
They're easier to rent when they're beautiful. Um, I would say invest in a condo, even if it's out of the mainstream of Manhattan. You're still going to do well with a condominium.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Now, in terms of motivational quotes, since the name of this podcast is Inspired to Invest, I always like to ask my guests if they have a particular quote that motivates or inspires them.
Oh gosh. One is don't give up. If you give up, you fail.
Yeah.
And there were so many times when I started, I've been in real estate 8 years, and the first 2 or 3 years, I'm like, it was hard. I didn't have a big client base. I didn't have a lot of business. I didn't have
Yeah.
cash flow. I didn't have a salary, no
Yeah.
more Wall Street. And I really had a lot of doubts. And it was really hard, but I didn't give up because I really felt like I know I can do this. I
Yeah.
know I can do this. I just I just kept
Right
investing,
away. Yeah. A
investing
mentor
and
of mine
investing.
once said, he's like, I didn't come this far only to come this far. So to put in
Yeah.
a few years, and it's kind of one of those things like, you got to decide at that point in time you want to keep going. But then on the flip side, there's also the quote, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? So I think when you are at that crossroads, whether it's in real estate or any career, you just have to decide for yourself, if you can see that turning point and continue
Yeah.
on to succeed, or does it make sense to just accept like this is not for me and go down a different path, right?
No, absolutely. It isn't for a lot of people, but I kept, I was trying different ways to brand
Yeah.
myself, different marketing,
Yeah.
different strategies. I'm with Compass now. We're a very high-tech company. They
Yeah.
have a lot of tools, and a lot of great management.
Yeah.
So, I finally feel like I'm there. I have
Yeah.
business. I have, a lot going on,
Yeah.
and I do feel more confident.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's huge. Now, in terms of how people can find you, if they want to learn more about New York City or, any of the ins and outs, what's the best place for them to get in touch?
Oh, you can reach me on Instagram at at Ellen J. Silverman,
Right.
or email me ellen.silverman@compass.com.
Great. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day today. And for anyone who is watching or listening, we appreciate your time as well. Make sure you have followed along with us on social at Inspire to Invest podcast. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Great. I'm just going to hit stop. Thank you to the GeoFocus Group for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.